Gurmagat, Count Corla. Taoiseach, the words RTE and crisis are now almost synonymous. Repeated scandals have hugely damaged public service trust and confidence. Kevin Backhurst and key members of the board are back in front of the Oireachtas committee today, and there's a long way to go, I think, to really rebuild the trust in RTE. Senior management have a really important role to play in this. We need a strong public service broadcaster that delivers an important public service journalism in the public interest. To do this, we need a credible plan that addresses the enormous corporate governance failures that have been identified. There must also be accountability for what has happened and full transparency going forward. But the management team can't do this alone. To proceed, they need government to make a decision on reform of the TV licence, because in its current form, it simply isn't working, and I think that's something that we all agree with. Sinn Féin have proposed scrapping it and replacing it entirely with exchequer funding. I disagree with that position. Frankly, I don't think it's been thought through. Making RTE entirely reliant on state funding opens it up to risk of political influence. That flies in the face of the entire purpose of an independent public service broadcaster who plays a key role in holding the government of the day to account. Not to mention that it would leave RTE's budget vulnerable to cuts during times of economic shock. It's not a tenable solution. The Social Democrats have proposed a three-stranded funding model comprised of some guaranteed multi-annual exchequer funding, a public charge, and a levy on social media companies. The reality is we need public service journalism now more than ever because of the misinformation and the disinformation spreading like wildfire on social media. It's undoubtedly damaging our democracy. For that reason, we believe social media companies should pay a levy to support public service journalism because trusted, independent media is more important now than it ever has been, due to social media platforms' inability to moderate their own platforms. A TV licence in an era where an increasing number of people stream content on their phone and on their tablets is completely outdated. So it should be rebranded to a household public service journalism charge at a lower rate than the existing TV licence, but collected in the same way. In our view, it's not appropriate for revenue to be tasked with collecting something that isn't a tax. Taoiseach, incredibly, we're still waiting for the government to outline what it intends to do. You say you have to wait for 2 more reviews before you indicate what your plan is, but I think that just has the hallmarks of kind of delaying tactics. We know that Minister Catherine Martin favours exchequer funding and the Taoiseach prefers the broadcasting charge collected by revenue, but I'm asking what your position is and when we can expect the government to finally agree its proposal. You say this year, but when this year?
Thank you, Deputy.
Thanks, Deputy. I can't give you a date today, but I think we should make a decision on this in the coming weeks and certainly in the coming months. I agree that at a time when misinformation and disinformation is rife, at a time when that is undermining democracy here and around the world, it's really important that we fund public service media and public service broadcasting, and that can't just be about RTE for reasons that I think we'll all agree. The current model is to fund it through a mixture of the exchequer and the TV licence. We will examine the options as to whether we go for a full exchequer system or a system like you propose, which is combined exchequer funding and a household charge. And we'll have to examine that and weigh up the options and decide how that's done. I think there will always need to be an element of exchequer funding. The current TV licence exempts people on very low incomes and older people. I think that would have to be the case for any household charge too. But I think the point you make is very valid. There is a concern, even if I may personally favour an exchequer funded model, and that does happen and does work in some countries, I would have a genuine concern about an exchequer funded model that not this government, but perhaps a future government led by the deputy opposite would have full control over the funding of RT and public service broadcasting. And there's a gross conflict of interest in somebody who is suing RTE deciding how much funding RTE would get. That would be a big problem, I think, for our democracy, and we'd have to bear that in mind.
Holly Cairns.
Thanks, Taoiseach. I think, look, the reality is this has been discussed at length, and I think in general the public are really sick of the same debates happening over and over again, the same conversations, and people are starting to tune out. And I think that kind of dampens the public mood for an appetite for a public service broadcaster and really the value of all of that. People are sick of hearing about it. There really is a limited number of options that are available to you, and at some point you're going to have to pick some of them. So you say you're in favour of some exchequer funding. We agree with you. We think there should be some guaranteed multi-annual exchequer funding. Can you outline your position on the continuation of a licence fee, but a reformed one that isn't based on a TV, because we know that that's dated? And could you also please outline your opinion on the potential for a charge for social media companies who are, seem to be incapable of managing their platforms and the spread of misinformation, because it seems like you are yet to come to a position on this. So I would ask you to consider the Social Democrats' position on this. Some guaranteed multi-annual exchequer funding, some TV licence fee reduced and rebranded as a public service journalism charge not based on televisions, and a charge for social media companies.
Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy. The current position, as you know, is that the TV licence is the law, and I encourage people to pay it. I always have. And it isn't just about RTE, it's about Irish language broadcasting, public service media, children's programming, and also the Broadcasting Fund, which helps support a lot of our broadcasters and creators who are in the private sector and have their own small businesses too. And I think we need to bear that in mind when we're deciding whether or not to pay the TV licence fee. It is linked to television at the moment. That is old-fashioned. I know there are people who've suggested that it be linked to having any sort of device. I don't think that's any more practical, quite frankly. The possibility of applying it to households could make sense, and that's the proposal that you're making as a party, although I think you would still need to exempt pensioners and very low-income households, because otherwise it would be very regressive, and I think you're agreed on that too. Any change requires legislation, will require a system to be set up. This year there will not be a new system, so the licence fee will continue to apply at least for the entirety of this year. And we have to consider all those options. In terms of a levy on social media companies, I'm not sure that's a great idea, Deputy. We already have a levy that's going to fund the Media Commission, which is imposed on, or due to be imposed on digital companies. We have VAT already on broadband, for example. We have corporate profit taxes, which are being increased this year. There's already a number of taxes there, and I'm not sure that would be the right approach to add on additional tax on top of that.
Thanks.